What if I told you that in the heart of Burkina Faso, a 17-year-old student has accomplished something that would make engineers with million-dollar labs stop and stare? No investors, no polished laboratories, no elite universities guiding him, just piles of scrap metal, condemned materials that most people would discard, and an iron determination that refused to bow to circumstances. Out of these fragments, he has built a fully functional electric car, something that has not only turned heads in his community, but also caught the attention of his nation's leadership. Yet the real story isn't simply about the car itself. It is about the journey, the struggles, and the message his achievement sends across Africa. His name is Yud Sorgo, and his invention is more than just a vehicle. It is a symbol, a declaration rolling on four wheels, proving that innovation in Africa is alive, daring, and unstoppable. Yud's journey began not with sophisticated tools or a wealthy sponsor, but with curiosity. As a child, he was known in his neighborhood for crafting toy cars out of discarded plastic, wires, and old motors scavenged from broken radios or gadgets. For the other children, they were just toys, something to play with. But for Yud, they were prototypes, the early versions of something much greater. While his peers played with electronics, he dismantled them, tracing every wire, studying each motor, and trying to understand the hidden systems inside. Each broken appliance became a textbook, and each small experiment fueled his imagination. Even at that young age, the dream was already clear in his mind. One day, he would build a real working car. The problem was obvious. He had no expensive equipment, no advanced training, no investors waiting to fund his dream. What he did have was his father's humble workshop, a space that smelled of oil and echoed with the sound of clinking metal. To the untrained eye, it was a pile of junk, rusted sheets, splintered wood, frayed cables, iron rods, and battered scraps of leather. To Yud, this was a treasure chest. From these discarded pieces, he began to weld, hammer, bend, and assemble, shaping his dream piece by piece. The work was never easy. Circuits failed, motors overheated, and frames collapsed. But each setback became a lesson. He taught himself welding, experimented with wiring, and absorbed whatever he could from online tutorials and local tech events. Nights stretched into early mornings as sparks flew and determination kept him going. Slowly, something remarkable took shape. A two-seat electric car capable of traveling up to 50 kilometers on just 2 rechargeable batteries and reaching a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. For a teenager with nothing but scrap and persistence, this was extraordinary. This was no toy. The car had functioning brakes, smooth acceleration, headlights, signals, a cooling system to keep the motor safe, and even a small sound system. At the back sat a spare tire, a practical detail proving this machine was built with real utility in mind. But the most striking detail sat at the front, a nameplate boldly reading Yud. It was not decoration, but his signature, his declaration of ownership, his proof to the world that this creation was his. When he drove it into the streets for the first time, people stopped mid-step. Some stared in disbelief, others clapped, and many pulled out their phones to record the sight of a teenager driving a car he had built from scraps. For Yud, that test drive was not about speed or distance. It was proof that dreams could be made real with enough persistence. Behind every young innovator is often someone silently encouraging them. For Yud, that person is his father, Yud Sorgo. Years earlier, Innocent had seen his son turn a simple school bicycle into an electric-powered bike. From that moment, he knew his son's mind was not just curious, it was inventive. Innocent provided his workshop, his advice, and his faith. He worried about safety as sparks flew and circuits hummed, but he never discouraged his son. Instead, he guided him, teaching safer techniques and reminding him that no dream is too big if pursued with consistency. That fatherly belief became the foundation of Yud's journey. Recognition soon followed. At the International Conference of Young Geniuses of Faso, Yud received a certificate honoring his innovation. For him, it was more than a piece of paper. It was the reward for long nights, failed attempts, and endless determination. Yet applause and certificates cannot. Yud has not been able to continue his studies this year. His dream of advancing education has been paused by financial struggles. It is a cruel irony. A young man whose mind races ahead into the future is held back by the weight of poverty in the present. Still, he refuses to stop. He continues to refine his car, sketch improvements, and dream of integrating solar panels to make it fully self-sustaining. A panel already sits on the front of his vehicle, disconnected but symbolic of the future he envisions. Yud's story, as powerful as it is not unique. Across Burkina Faso and across the continent, a silent revolution is underway. Young people in cramped workshops and backyards are building extraordinary things. Another young innovator in Burkina Faso has built a solar-powered mini-truck from salvaged parts, practical enough to transport goods through rural roads. Uriel Michel Suzanga has developed a polished solar-powered electric car that drew admiration at a national conference. In Nigeria, a young builder recreated a Tesla-style truck entirely from scrap. In Rwanda, startups are deploying drones for medical deliveries to remote villages. In Ghana, solar-powered kiosks are transforming rural communities. These are not isolated miracles. They are sparks in a growing fire of African innovation. This is where leadership plays a decisive role. In Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has consistently reminded the nation that independence is not just about flags and speeches, but about genuine self-reliance. Under his leadership, the government has begun investing in locally made vehicles, expanding public transportation with hundreds of buses, and encouraging young innovators by recognizing their efforts. For talents like Yud, this support means more than words. It is the bridge that could transform a backyard prototype into mass production, turning small-scale dreams into national pride. The larger question is this: what would happen if thousands of young Africans like Yud were given real support? What if schools built innovation labs where students could learn welding, coding, and practical engineering instead of only memorizing theories? What if communities invested in workshops where young people trained with artisans, turning raw creativity into usable skills? What if policies were designed to protect African inventions, preventing them from being stolen or patented abroad? If that happened, Africa would not just be catching up with the world, it would be leading it. Yud's car is more than a machine. It is a mirror reflecting Africa's potential. It shows us that the continent's greatest wealth is not its gold, oil, or minerals, but its youth, its dreamers, its innovators. His invention is just one spark, but in the right conditions, that spark can ignite a fire across the continent. The question is whether Africa's leaders, educators, and communities will fan that flame, or allow it to flicker out under the weight of neglect. So what do you think? Should innovators like Yud be supported with funding, mentorship, and platforms to grow? Should African leaders prioritize youth-driven innovation even in the face of other pressing challenges? Your voice matters. Share your thoughts in the comments, give this video a like if you believe in Africa's future, and subscribe to Voice of Africa so we can continue telling stories that prove Africa's tomorrow is already being built today.